This is Carolyn Sykes, and I'm going to tell you about the easyCBM reading assessment. The purpose of this assessment is that it's a screening tool and it can be used to identify students who may be at a high or low risk in reading. There are 7 components of this test. It can be administered K through 8th grade, and not every component is tested at every grade level, but overall there are 7 components: letter names, sounds, phoneme segmenting, word reading and passage fluency, vocabulary, and multiple choice reading comprehension. Administering each component is a little different depending on which component you do. The one-on-one tests only take 1 minute each: phoneme segmenting, letter sounds, letter names, word reading, and passage reading fluency. And here's what those look like. So the phoneme segmenting, the teacher says a word and then the student says the phonemes that they hear within that word. Word reading looks like this, where you're just reading lists of words, and letter sounds looks like that. The passage reading fluency looks like this, where it's typically a 1-pager, and students read as much as they can in 1 minute. Vocabulary looks like this. It's 20 questions that are multiple choice. And the comprehension looks like this, where students read a whole story and then answer 20 multiple choice questions. So the vocabulary test can be given whole group. Students can either take it on the computer or use a printed copy, and that's 20 multiple choice questions. The comprehension test can also be given whole group, and you can do it on the computer or using a printed copy. Scores are entered into the system online, and then percentiles are calculated, and the scores are highlighted based on risk. So if a student is highlighted in red, that means they're at high risk in reading, and they're in the 0 to 19th percentile. If they're highlighted in yellow, there's some risk, 20 to 39th percentile. If they're not highlighted at all, they're just meeting benchmark, the 40th to the 94th percentile. And students are highlighted in green if they are far above the benchmark, 95th to 100th percentile. The scores are calculated for each student, but there's not an overall score that averages those multiple components. However, they do give a Lexile level for each student. So here's an example of what it looks like. I just took a screenshot of my class because I've used this assessment this year, but without student names. So my student names would have been over here on the left, and then this top student, that's what they scored in the fluency, vocabulary, comprehension. So overall, they're rated as having high risk for reading, and then that would be the Lexile level that corresponds to that. So you can see everything is highlighted, and the percentile is shown as well. This is just a screening assessment, and at least in PPS, it's given 3 times a year to all students. Because it's a screening test, it does not give the whole picture for each student, so you'll want to go back and take this student who is obviously at high risk and give a more diagnostic assessment to find out more about that student. And in terms of next steps for instruction, it doesn't really give that much detailed information about that. So I just think if you have a student who is at high risk, you'd want to give a diagnostic assessment to find the exact areas for instruction. And then you can use this as a progress monitoring tool along the way. There are other shorter tests, progress monitoring tests, that you can give every few weeks for instruction. And that's it.